It's on.
And we're back. Yay.
Episode
For
season
4.
episode 4, season 2. We're just doing a 2 episode season. Keeping it light for
How
you
was your
guys.
break? How was your break? We went everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Got
Um,
some new exciting stuff for you. Wow, it's gonna be the biggest one yet. Yeah.
I do have something funny to add first because I thought it was interesting. Because
Uh,
we were talking last week about how evolution isn't really happening anymore. I was saying in humans,
right.
and then they just came out with a study showing that so you've got your two arm bones, like your radial and your ulnar. Is that it? Radial ulnar,
Okay.
like the two arm bones,
Yep.
and then you've got two veins that go along each one
Okay.
on the inside, like on the inside of your arm. There's two veins.
Okay.
When you're born, and when you're gestating, you have a third one that runs down the middle, and that disappears as you in your once you're born, and in the first couple of years it disappears.
Mm.
But now they're finding it more and more and more in people till it's a uncommon trait is what they're calling it.
Okay.
So instead of having
So,
just the two,
yeah. So it's an additional. Does it have like a functional feature? Or it's just an odd change.
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's something. Maybe it's because we use our hands a lot more, like more
Oops.
fine motor skills. Maybe it needs more blood. I don't know.
Ah, it's from the
Yeah.
clicking finger.
Yeah, exactly. It's like because everyone's doing this now, so it's like more blood flow to the fingers.
Hmm.
Um,
They're gonna end up
and
like
then the up,
those homunculi with the giant hands and
what's
shriveled
the?
little.
Have you seen the eyes? Have
No.
you seen the the one in Madagascar? And it's just got the enormous finger.
Oh,
It's like everything else is normal, and then it pulls this other finger out, and it's like this long and thin and bone,
yeah,
and it's used for like going down into wood and
yeah,
picking out grubs.
yeah. Well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Don't aliens have that kind of a hand structure? Like that weird kind of elongated.
yeah, they've got more like just all their fingers are weird.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
probably from too
there's,
much mouse usage.
yeah, that's probably it. This is where we've seen our future.
Speaking of,
Oh, but wait,
oh, okay,
go,
yeah, go on.
no, go. There's one more.
Yep.
One more evolutionary change that they're noticing. People are getting born without wisdom teeth.
Hmm? Don't we grow them later?
Yeah, no, no, but they don't grow them.
Oh,
Like we're just not growing wisdom teeth.
oh, geez, that would have been
Which
handy.
I mean, I guess it's not really an evolutionary change that's because it's been happening for a while. Like we've had our wisdom tooth are already annoying. Like they're not.
Yeah, but we still have them.
Yeah, I know, but like they're
Oh,
slowly getting
yeah,
like
right.
I mean, I'm sure there was a time when wisdom teeth just grew in
Yeah.
as like teeth. They weren't called wisdom teeth, they were
Wasn't
just like teeth.
wasn't that like that weird description of the Buddha in the old text where he had like 40 teeth or something in his mouth,
Yeah,
and it's like, who has 40 teeth in their mouth? Like, aren't we at like
yeah,
28 or 30 something? Or he just had this.
yeah, I don't know. But it's an odd thing to say.
Yeah. Oh, maybe
But
maybe
then,
we are just losing teeth.
yeah,
L-
religious texts have a lot of weird stuff in them.
less what is it, ruminating?
Yeah, there's a lot of weird artifacts in stuff like that.
Yeah. It's probably
Like
probably the dental records don't quite match up to that
yeah, and you
story.
never know like where that was added in, or
Yeah.
maybe there was somewhere that it was special to have 40 teeth, and so like you're trying to
Yeah, just chuck it in
show
there.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly, to get these people impressed.
You had extra
But
wisdom
anyway,
teeth.
what were you saying?
At where I'm working, the what is it? They banned the use for students using their tech devices for a week, um, like during break time or whatever, because they're just watching TV and whatnot. And so they're like, nah,
Yeah.
you're misusing your privileges, so we're gonna take them away for a week. It was one of the kids sitting at his desk with a mouse on his desk, a wireless mouse, no anything else there, like no laptop or nothing. He's just clicking it. Like,
Wow.
what are you doing? They won't let us have our devices. Like, yeah,
Like
that's addict behavior right there.
yeah,
It's like the people
uh,
that they'll get like any old random bit of paper and start rolling it up into a
yeah, exactly.
dear. So
That is hilarious.
yeah, I mean it's hilarious slash frightening.
Well, I mean, it's like the lab monkey or the lab mouse, like when they press the button to get the
Oh yeah,
sugar. It's like
yeah.
there's nothing coming.
Need my dopamine. Need my
Yep.
dopamine. Yeah. So what have you been up to anyway?
Uh, Working, and then today I had a day off. Um,
Mm.
and on the weekend was my sister's 40th, so that was good fun.
Oh yeah.
Had all the family together.
Yeah.
Um, Kids all playing. They all had laser tag, which was pretty cool. Um,
What? At a place, or
no, no, it's just
they've
they've
got.
got like kids have laser tag now, like
Oh jeez.
just as like something to have.
That's that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I think I've got them here somewhere.
Yeah, I mean
Show you. Let me see.
I liked playing that as a young guy. I mean, I liked
Yeah,
playing it
yeah,
as
they
an
are.
adult too, but it was always in a
Yeah,
center with a backpack thing.
yeah. No, no. I mean,
Now you
I
just
think there's always been. Um, I think there's always been laser tag available to buy,
oh
but like these ones are like so high quality now.
yeah
Like, look at
right.
that. It's like you got the gun, and then you got the chest plate,
All right,
and you turn it on.
that's awesome. And
Yeah, and then you get 10 shots,
okay,
and this has 10 health, so it's like it slowly goes
oh yeah,
down,
it's got like a
and
counter on it. Oops.
yeah, and no, it slowly goes from green to yellow. I mean, green to blue to orange to red,
Yeah,
and then it tells you one hit left, and then
right.
I mean, most of the
That's
kids just hold the chest plate and try and shoot each other.
yeah, of course. You gotta
Or
put
they
it on their back.
like this, like trying to shoot.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
that's
it's
pretty
pretty
good
cool.
though. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool fun at night. Like you just see like all these kids running around with these like laser pistols.
Shooting each other. Well,
It's
I
good
mean,
fun.
that's because you're allowed out at night, right? Like, we've just re-entered into lockdown.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm in one of those rare places that doesn't have lockdown and never has had it. And the most we had was we were worried about people coming up here and infecting us, and
Oh,
they
that's
never did.
damn
So
outside here. Wow. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty good. So I mean, we've had there's probably been about 30 infections,
Jeez.
but they've all been stopped at the border
Yeah, right.
and put into quarantine.
Yeah, right. Just feed them to the
So
crocs. Yeah.
yeah, so it's been really good. Like we've been really lucky, and yeah, everyone's benefited from it because there's no.
Yeah, you can still be outside and
Yeah, there
around
was a
people.
period where they said like you could only have groups of 10 or something,
Oh, okay.
but it only lasted a couple weeks, and then they were like, ah, just kidding,
Yeah.
just go back to
No
how you
one's
were.
sick. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now we've had zero for ages, so no
Jeez.
one's been.
Yeah. Happy times. So
Yeah, it's
I
been
guess no
good.
one's rioting in the street then, losing their minds.
No, as I said, to be honest, I kind of watch it as an outsider, this whole thing.
Yeah,
Like I haven't been watching it as part of it. Like the world's going through this crazy like lockdown coronavirus thing,
yeah,
and I just haven't been part of it at all. But yeah, it's really
yeah.
weird.
I mean, it's very fortunate. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Um,
so it's
that
kind
would
of
be,
like it's like kind of like been abstract to me. Like it hasn't been that real.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'd mostly been missing it, although the lockdown was pretty intense here. Um, with the way they were running, but because of that, our infection rate was super low here in Malaysia. But it's just started blooming out now. I think we're getting like 600 cases a day, um, and they're just appearing everywhere.
Wow,
But the
that's a
government,
lot.
yeah, it is starting to come up.
Is that in just in KL or is that
No,
just across the whole?
that's across the whole country. Yeah, most of it's still,
It's not too bad still.
yeah, it's not too bad. It's like, look, it's more than what we've had at all,
Yeah,
because they were pretty quick to just kind of lock it all down here.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it was mostly over in one of the islands on the east, Sabah, I think it is, and they had elections there. And so all these people
yeah.
went there for whatever elections and voting and stuff, and then they came back. But the setup for it, I think, this is what I think, I don't know exactly, but I think the setup was not that good, that um, the proper precautions weren't taken, so people just all caught it there. And then
Oh,
they
jeez.
traveled back to wherever they were from,
Yeah.
and it just spread around. And so, yeah, it's blooming
Wow.
out. But the way the government's handling it is, they're not doing a full lockdown, it's still partial, there's movement control. So at the moment, I'm having to go to work in a school where there's no students.
That's.
They're all learning online.
But are
Um,
you going to school and then teaching them online?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
I'm
at least you're actually teaching. You're not just rocking up to school and sort of.
no, no, it's not quite that. No, like we have a job still to do. It's just like
Yeah.
my work was more one-on-one counseling stuff, but
Yeah.
now it's like, well, I send out emails and say, guys, set up a video chat if you need one, but they're all too busy like just gaming away. So
Yeah.
it's like, no, this is what they were waiting for. I had so many
Yeah.
of these
Yeah.
kids just like, I want to be back in lockdown. Like,
Really. Yeah. I guess so.
okay.
I mean,
Oh
if you're
man,
not earning money and your
yeah,
income isn't threatened,
yeah,
then why wouldn't you want to just be at home?
yeah. I mean, can you imagine you as a high schooler with access to
Yeah.
gaming that's out now?
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And
It's
like,
like
oh,
I had them like staring at my screen, or staring at me on the screen like this. I was like, I know
uh,
you're not listening to me. I know you've got another window open and you're gaming like crazy, because
it's
most people
probably just
blink.
it's probably a photo.
Yeah.
They've probably just like taken a screenshot and put it up.
Yeah, no, I wish that they were actually being creative like that. It's just, no, they were just,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, normal people blink. You guys are
Yeah.
watching something pretty intensely, and I know it's not me. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
but, I
I
mean, reverse those roles, man, I would be doing exactly the same thing. There's no way I
yeah.
wouldn't have been
Yeah.
gaming like crazy and just been like, no, I'm listening.
Well, I did hear they were talking about productivity and people in lockdown and
Mm,
how people that were working from home, the productivity was dropping.
yeah, of course.
Um, well, you can say, of course, but I mean, like these are adults, so it's not children. It's like,
Yeah, but they're not adjusted to it though. It's like
yeah,
you take your comfort zone, your comfort like place, and then try and shove work in the midst of that. You're just surrounded
yeah,
by distraction opportunities.
yeah. And I guess you are. It's just a program, so it's like you're basically like conditioned to relax when you're in this room.
Yeah, you'd have to like
Yeah,
actually set up a workspace or an office space in your home where it's like when I go in there, it's work.
Yeah, but
And
that's, I mean, maybe it needs, maybe you need to retrain yourself to do that.
you do.
Because that's what they were saying. Like, it didn't
Yeah.
matter whether they had an office space, whether they had a separate room. All these things didn't matter. Eventually, they were like, I'm gonna go make a coffee. I'm gonna just like,
Yeah. No, what you do is you
yeah,
shove a deadline in front of them and say if it's not done by this time, I'm either docking your pay or you're out, and the next guy's in, and
mm,
then suddenly productivity goes back up. It's
yeah.
like,
And but the scary thing was they were talking about adding uh, digital
no,
watching. Like,
no,
yeah, so they're gonna like
no.
they're gonna have like the boss will have access to everyone's screen, and they'll be
Oh,
able to
so screen
just
sharing. Yeah, there's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a program called
So
Teams or something that does that at the moment. That yeah,
yeah, but that they can just do it at will and see what people are doing. And
yeah, that's fine. I just share monitor one only. Monitor
oh
two
no,
has
but
yeah,
yeah, so it's I think it's just if people are gonna if working from home is gonna become a thing,
yeah,
I think corporate life is gonna invade your home rather than
yeah. There
your
will
home. You know,
yeah,
it's gonna be instead of being this like idyllic,
yeah,
oh, we're just sharing our like, oh, I'm just doing my work is just through this portal.
yeah.
It's like, no, 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 they're gonna run a pipe into your house and it's gonna like take over your house and know exactly what your house is
Yeah,
doing.
there will definitely be micromanagement assholes out there that are
Yeah,
like, you need to give me optimal productivity at every single hour,
yeah,
otherwise I'm not paying you a cent. It's like, all right, well,
yeah,
hire someone else then. But you'll get some that will think that's their only opportunity for work and get stuck in that. Like, I've been in workplaces where some just say have what is it, flexi time. So you just need to make sure you do the job you're supposed to. You have a caseload, get it all done. But whatever your hours are, just you just work them. But you don't have to be at work at 8 and finish at 4 or whatever. If you want to do 7 till
yeah.
3 or 9 to 5
Well,
or whatever, just do it.
yeah, that's the government.
Now that
Like
was, well, I mean, it
the
was
government has
NGO, but
those.
um,
Yeah, a lot of the government workers here do that. They've got flexi time.
yeah, yeah. But I
And it's
mean,
like as
you
long as
just
you
get your
do X
quota
amount of
done.
hours, it can be anywhere. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You do
but
clock your hours up, but I mean, the reality is productivity and like task requirements generally don't need to match up. Like most people, especially if you're skilled at your job, you can get your work done within the well within the hours that you need, and so you just have like hours of downtime with nothing to do.
yeah, exactly.
Um, and like that's where the trap is, especially if you're working from home, is that all of a sudden you're like, well, I've got an 8 hour day, but I only have 4 hours of work. So
Yeah,
normally at work you can't sleep at your desk. You can't just like
yeah,
wear
yeah.
your tracksuit pants and wander around. But at home you definitely can. And so that's where you're gonna lose that bit. So
That's where I had a suggestion. Like my boss was like, "Oh, you can work from home." Like this is when COVID was starting to really come online.
yeah.
I can't remember what I was doing. What was I? I was asking him for something, and he said, "Oh, well, we don't mind if you work from home, but you just have to log the hours you actually work, and we're not going to pay you for anything else." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, 10
And
hour day every day.
yeah, yeah, but no, but then he's like, but we're going to estimate it at like 2 to 3 hours a day,
What?
and yeah, yeah, because he's just like you just have to do these reports because a lot of the other stuff that the work does is like talking to people, like you're going around
All right. Yeah.
managing people and telling them what to do and stuff. So it's like if I'm just going to do the reports from home,
Mm.
um, he's like that should only take you 2 or 3 hours. So that's all we're going to pay you.
And you're like, nah.
Yeah, I was just like, no, I'll just take holiday. Like I'll just take
Yeah.
holiday pay. Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think I had to stay home for a couple of days
Oh,
to look
okay.
after my daughter. So I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
and then it was, oh, you're welcome to work from home, and but we'll only pay you for a couple hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Look, if there wasn't the problems of like salary gaps between the workers and the head guys that are blowing out to the ridiculous proportions they are, I would say, it's all right to have a little bit of monitored productivity in your workplace, but when they're just trying to squeeze every drop out of you so that they
Yeah,
can have their 300 times your salary paycheck, then it's like, I just, where's your motivation to keep going with these people?
yeah.
Um,
It's
but,
it's a hard one.
but, I mean, in a business sense, if you no longer have to rent a giant office space, like if you're just saying to each of your employees, just come in once a week, I would just have a like reduced to a quarter of the office size that you need and just have a rotating desk for them. You save all that money on rent. People can claim home office on their taxes and stuff, and everyone kind of makes a bit of a win out of it. So I can imagine that they would push for that more. And once you get like your 5G network in, I don't know if Australia will ever get around to that, but if it does,
Oh, yeah, I think they're doing it soon. They were trying to
are they?
stop it for one stage.
Yeah, I thought they were stopping it because like they'd invested
No,
all the
it's
money in the cabling and even that's not finished yet.
yeah. I told you they decided they Liberals just announced like Labor's plan from when they first started.
Which
They're like,
was
hey, we're gonna give everyone fiber to the home, and
no, just do
eh,
5G. Stop all this
but it
nonsense.
was, they were like, we're gonna give everyone fiber to the home, and as if it was like some new idea.
Mm,
And
that's
but they are gonna start doing gigabit connections.
okay. That's pretty huge.
Yeah, so it's
It's gonna
that
take the
I
next
think
10, 15 years, but it's pretty good.
no, it's like on the existing fiber that they've worked
Oh,
out a
okay.
way to cram more into the fiber.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was watching something on it ages ago, and they were I don't know if it's the same technology they're going to use, but it's about bouncing multiple light waves
Oh,
through the cable at certain angles, and then they can just like have them really close together.
right. So you can
So
have multiple
so like
channels running.
so they do this like they follow each other down,
Right.
but they never touch.
Like in
So
Tron.
it's just yeah, like the motorbikes.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what's happening. There's little people in there just driving.
Yeah, that's right. It's the whole story. Gotta get this data across, man. uh,
Little Uber Eats guys with like data packages on their backs.
Swerving in and out of traffic. Yeah. Um, but I mean, as a business, once you've got that opportunity for your worker to work, because like, I mean, I know for teaching, you kind of want the kids in front of you,
Yeah,
um, just for the monitoring side of it. Um, because like schools in a lot of ways are still a babysitting facility as well as educational. Um, and that's something that I want to just jump into a little bit next. But um, unless you've got parents that are also then working from home, but it's like if you're working from home plus you've got to monitor your kid at home as well. There's a reason why they don't do that at workplaces already.
it was really hard. Like we had first-hand experience of it in the
Oh yeah,
last
of
two
course.
weeks because it
Yep,
was school holidays,
yep.
and like sometimes Angie took a day off, like to work from home,
Mm,
and it's just really hard. It's like because there's a certain level of attention you have to give the kid.
yeah,
Like there's no you can't not.
yep.
And I had to take her into work some days, the whole day, like she was,
Jeez.
and it's just really tiring. Like it's so tiring,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah,
it's
which is why I don't get too upset, or not too upset, but why I understand why parents tend to give them an iPad or something.
mm,
'Cause it's just
well,
like it's just exhausting. I mean, I don't have the first hand, but I see
yeah,
it on
it's
them.
really interesting. It's interesting because the like after school care facilities
Mm,
are quite good, but they in no way replace parental care.
yeah, right.
Like it's it like we had a daughter in parental care. I mean, in after school care for a while.
Mm,
Came back sick almost every week.
Jesus.
Um, and she was starting to misbehave. Like it was her personality was changing over even just a few weeks of being there. And it's just like it's really weird. And I don't know.
I'm not sure if that was an after-school care place you were sending her, Simon. It might have been like a correctional facility or something.
but I mean, it's probably it is just anecdotal. It's just one person, and
Sure.
like thousands of people have
Yeah.
kids in after school care. But we definitely noticed it, and
Yeah.
especially the sickness. Like
Mm, yeah.
she was just getting sick all the time because there's just kids there,
Oh yeah.
and once they're going to after school care, the parents can't not put them in after school care because they're working.
Yeah.
So if the child's sick, then they're sick and they're going to after school care sick.
Yeah.
And there's no,
No, kids touch everything, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, geez, that
And
is.
COVID was kind of the reason why we took her out.
Yeah, right.
Because I was like, well, if this is how a normal sickness happens,
Oh yeah.
like COVID would just rip through these things. Like there'd
Yeah,
be,
that's why they shut the schools first thing. It was like
yeah.
before anything else closed down, all the schools were like, nope, send the students home.
Well, see, that's the exact opposite here. They're like, nah, kids are immune, just leave them open.
They're not immune. I mean, they
Like, but
might
they're
be
like, they don't get
asymptomatic or
it.
whatever.
Like, yeah, that's what they meant. Like that was just short. They were like, nah,
Oh,
kids don't really have symptoms. They're not in danger. Just let them have it. And then you get,
smart.
well,
Yeah.
well, it's just not thinking about the next two generations of people they come in contact with,
Yeah, that's right.
like the parents and grandparents. Um, and yeah, it's very
Well,
unusual.
I mean, look, the conspiracy is that you gotta get rid of the older folks because they're draining on the the pension funds and everything. So,
That is true.
and on the medical systems, although they are kind of propping up the medical systems a bit, but everything else they're draining. So, win-win.
Oh, in a
Um,
complete tangent.
oh,
Sorry.
yep.
Did you want to say anything else on that?
Not on that
I
one,
just,
but yeah, I wanted to
it
talk
just,
about education stuff, but yeah, you go first.
this is going to be completely different. It was just you were talking about propping up systems and things like that.
Oh, okay.
In South Australia,
Yeah.
um, NWA, they're having to subsidize the power companies because solar is so effective. Like the grids
Yeah.
are not able to maintain the throughput of power because it's not being used. So they can't the grids are becoming unstable. So the power companies are having to pump out heaps of waste power
Oh my
to
God.
try and because the grid needs a certain amount of throughput to
Yeah.
be stable
Right.
because obviously
Electric cars
as
would
you
really help with that.
well what's weird like because it's like you have to like you've got a whole grid full of wires
Yeah.
and those wires are leaking electricity.
Jeez, it sounds like
So
I mean it sounds like plumbing, when pressure's not high enough, you don't get good like water flow, but this one's the opposite, is that it's over pressurized with energy or something.
well think of voltage and amperage.
Yeah.
It's like you need a certain amount to travel a certain distance.
Oh.
Like I think it amperage. I think you need a certain amperage,
Yeah,
which is the
I don't
which
know.
is well, I think amperage is the one that's likened to a nozzle. So you like turn it on and it gets the fatter the nozzle, the
Okay.
higher the amperage.
Right.
So you can have a million volts,
Oh yeah, and it
but
doesn't
it's
kill you.
going at
That's right.
0.001 amperage,
Yeah.
and it's just like a little stream of water.
Yeah.
But if you have like 6 amps and 150 volts
Yeah.
that can kill you.
Yeah.
So because it's just a huge throughput of electrons.
Right.
So anyway, the whole grid needs that amount, like a certain amount of throughput to be able to access the grid.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because it has to go from way over here, a
Yeah.
centralized body, and then go across to the other end of the grid,
Right.
and it's got to reach there. So if there's not a demand over here,
Right.
you're not getting that throughput of
Yeah.
power going into the ground, which
Yeah.
eventually it does. It goes through into devices.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so they're getting like brownouts and
because the solar
power
power's
shortages.
working too well.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's so
it,
crazy.
it's insane. Like, it's like this tipping point where
Yeah. Right.
it's like it hasn't quite overtaken it, but it's on the way there, and it's now having an effect on the legacy system.
Jeez.
Whereas before it was like, yeah, get solar, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But now they're like, oh, no, no, hang on, and they're trying to work out how to manage the
Well, yeah. I mean, look, daily
yeah,
charging of your car would really help if they stopped
yeah.
pushing petrol engines and started pushing electric ones. Should just
Well,
call up
it's
Elon. Hey, can we get
well,
like
it's
a
specifically
million
it's
Teslas here?
specifically during the day, like when people are
Yeah.
at work, the grid naturally loses a lot of power,
Right.
but solar is at its maximum.
Right.
So it's like and everyone's dumping their power onto the grid.
I'm just like imagining workers standing on the top of their power stations with two like giant cables just firing electric like lightning bolts. Must
Well, it'd be
burn the
you
power.
think you think it would be a good time to do high energy physics experiments or something when there's excess power? Like I don't think we've ever been a time where there's like
Yeah.
we have too much power.
Yeah. Yeah, Australia's a big country. You could set up some
Mm,
good accelerators and stuff.
true. You probably have really stable
Yeah,
conditions in the desert and stuff.
yeah, that's true. And if you blew the whole place up, no one would know because
No,
there's nothing there. Yeah.
no, it'd just be a bunch of dead kangaroos and that'd be about it.
Yeah. Melted sand, big, an extra big hole in the middle of Australia.
Okay, who put the black hole in the desert?
Don't go out there. There's a black hole. Go around it. You're just like driving along and just these sand trails are just slowly moving off into the bush.
It's just like, shh.
Someone's put up a sign. Shit. Um,
Yeah. So I don't want to get too off track, but yeah.
no,
Anyway, yeah,
that's bizarre though. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, far out. They, I mean, it actually sounds like a great thing, you know? It's like, oh, we've got so much clean energy that our old
yeah,
fossil fuel energy is actually not coping well.
yeah. Well, Australia, like South Australia, now has the world's biggest battery, that Elon Musk made.
Oh,
Did you hear about that a few years ago? They
no.
so that they've been trying to work out how to take advantage because they're building these huge solar farms as well as
Mm,
having individual solar roofs. They're building massive solar farms.
yeah,
Um, and they wanted a way to store that energy overnight. And so I think Elon Musk picked up on it, or they talked to him or something,
mm,
and he put it on Twitter. He's like, "Look, we'll get this done in I think it was like 3 months, for like some small amount of money. It was like a
yeah,
100 million or something. Otherwise, it's free. Just to like
yeah.
get the tender
Promo, yeah,
and like show everyone."
yeah.
And he just did it. They just built this enormous battery out in South Australia, and now it just like it becomes like base load power because that's always been the argument is that you need these legacy fossil fuel burning things because they provide the base load.
All right.
Like if you, because obviously solar only works during the day,
Yeah.
wind only works when it's
Windy.
turning.
Mm.
Yeah, like I mean, you get hydro works pretty much all the time, but
Yeah, those are.
you're stuck
Yeah.
to where rivers are and
Yeah.
stuff like
And
that.
then
So
you're
it's
damming stuff and yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that was the argument, was that you need these, still need these fossil fuel burning things
Mm.
and nuclear. I mean, we don't have any nuclear in Australia, but you need these things
Mm.
because they provide the base power just in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, right. Case of a cloudy day or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or like all of a sudden there's a freak storm for 2 weeks and then
Mm.
you don't get any power. So so
But he's
this is
gone
the
and built
answer.
one, right?
Yeah, they built it and they've actually since then they've added to it. So it's even bigger now.
Jesus.
It's really interesting looking. It's just like a bunch of boxes, like in rows, but like on a massive scale.
I was just imagining like a giant like D cell, but the size of a building.
A giant red and a giant black wire coming. Yeah, no, it's just really freaky, like the way some parts of our system are becoming so futuristic, and some of it's just so far in the past.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it it is a changing of fairly significant technology utilization.
Mm,
So, but it's also the scale in which you need to build it. It's like shoving in a power grid and power stations. It has taken a long time to produce all that.
yeah,
That's
no,
because
exactly.
it's yeah servicing millions of people or whatever. But then it's like, oh, let's find a replacement for it. Well, this is gonna take some time. The
Yeah,
technology
but
might be there for it, but like actually putting it in place is it's just it's just like the internet running all these fiber cables everywhere. It was just such big distances and such great
yeah,
cost. It's like, wow, we can do it, but it's going to take a hell of a long time.
yeah. I always wondered about that.
I should just move everyone in Australia down into like Victoria or something. Leave the rest of it just open, no man's land kind of stuff. Anyone that wants to be nomadic, start tribes and whatnot, just go for it.
Well, that was the plan in the 80s. If we ever were attacked, it was the Tropic of Capricorn. Is it Capricorn in the Southern Hemisphere or Cancer? Capricorn, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably sounds right.
It's like the meridian off the
Yeah,
equator. So it's
yeah.
yeah, that line was where we would just give Australia up, and then everyone retreat south.
So where we were growing up.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like just leave that.
Yeah, yeah.
No one,
It's like 20
no one
people
wants
there.
that.
Forget about it.
Yeah,
Couple of crocs. Let them deal with it.
yeah.
Oh,
So
jeez.
yeah, they that was the plan. But yeah, the other
It's still a good
interesting,
plan actually.
yeah, well, no, they changed it because of long range bombers.
Oh,
So so now, because the idea was that they wouldn't be able to get across the desert.
yeah, right.
Like there's nothing there, so they couldn't refuel, but now they
Yeah.
don't need to. So that's why in the 90s, all the army came up to Darwin and the north. And that's why there's a US air base doing air practices
Oh yeah.
365 days a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah, basically that it's become like an outpost now, like
Yeah.
an actual military outpost.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, what was I reading about that? Had to do with the integration of technology. No, it's gone.
Well, there is another interesting thing. In WA, they've come up with these bricks. They're like black Lego bricks, like they're large like this, and
Uh-huh.
they've got the little Lego things that they can stack on top of each other.
Yeah.
And it is a low cost way of storing energy as heat. So during the day, the solar and the wind, or whenever it's blowing, the wind and the solar goes into these blocks and it's a mixture of specific metals.
Mm.
So um, it melts certain areas in the blocks
Oh.
and makes them hot, and then you run tubes through the metal,
Mm.
through the blocks, these metallic blocks.
Yeah.
It's like a certain mix. So it's like, and it's rammed together. It's not fused. It's just like loosely rammed together.
Yeah.
And you have these tubes running through with water, and you just create a basic steam turbine. So so during the off-peak times and the
Mm.
times when it's cloudy or when there's no baseload power,
Mm.
these molten bricks in these massive silo things just run superheated water through them and like produce steam.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like a molten salt. There were other ones like that, like have you seen those ones in California? They're like a huge circular disc of solar panels, but
Oh
they're like
yeah.
mirrors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they all point to the
Yeah.
center.
And they
Yeah,
boil.
and melt yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there was that. What was that? It was a really cool demonstration of the like a half sphere mirror,
Mm,
and it had like this had this. It was like a maybe a what a 1 meter or something diameter across it, and it had like this focal point
yeah.
where every single like part of that surface would focus all of the light into one area. So it was just sunlight, but that point was super hot. It was so hot that you could just melt iron straight by putting it through, or just burst into
Wow.
flame. Wood would just immediately just erupt in flames and burn. And it was like, but he said like if you move just slightly out of that because it's not got the focal point, you can just run your hand through. There's no burning. But at this one point, all that sunlight had been concentrated into in a single area, and it was just super hot. It was yeah, it was really freaky.
Were they putting ants in?
They're like daring each other.
Yeah,
You touch it.
yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it was like he had what is it like a screw or a bolt or something, and he had that like bolted into a piece of wood, and he's just like holding it up, puts it into that focal point, and then it just starts melting, and you're just like, what the
Wow.
hell? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a freaky demonstration, but it's
yeah.
showing you like the sheer amount of energy that's just coming out of sunlight.
Yeah, and we're not even harnessing hardly any of it.
Yeah, yeah, it was, it
Like I
was
think I think solar panels are only it's some small percentage that we're actually getting out of the solar panels.
Yeah, I don't think they're that efficient. I don't know what the
Yeah,
model problems are with it, but they've had that problem for quite a while.
yeah, it's crazy.
Um, yeah, I think
Anyway,
it's something to do with the energy conversion. Like they just don't quite know how to convert that heat, radiant heat energy into
yeah,
whatever it is
it's
that
a
makes
broad.
electricity.
I mean, sunlight is a pretty broad spectrum of energy.
Mm,
So you've got to have a receptor that receives all of those wavelengths.
yeah.
I think that's one of the like that's why like leaves are green and stuff because it it creates a certain specific it collects a certain specific
All right.
wavelength.
All right.
It's
Well,
it's
everything
designed.
everything but green.
Yeah, we don't want none of that
Yeah.
green light.
Green is actually bad light. That's why we're
Yeah,
reflecting it away. Yeah.
yeah. It is interesting that they
Mm.
yeah that is still an issue,
Mm.
and it shows how much more we could collect.
Yeah, I mean, with the tech, that's right. Um, Jumping back to the education one, unless you
Yeah.
unless you wanted to,
No,
yeah.
no, that's it. I knew it was a tangent, so I was,
I was watching who's he Lex Friedman,
oh
and he,
yeah,
he
yeah.
did this talk with this neuroscientist that was talking about the neuroplasticity of our brains. I think we were talking a little bit about that sort of stuff last
Mm,
week with yeah. But he was he was talking in that this is not so much about the neuroplasticity stuff. It's about the method of learning that we're doing. Um, he called it oh geez. I can't remember what it's called now. It's basically just stating how our brains are adaptive to learning. Live wire. He was calling it live wire. And it's that uh, we have like this brain sitting inside the skull, and it's basically set up to be adaptive to whatever stimulus is coming in. So these areas of the brain are not specifically built for like just vision or whatever. Um, they can handle vision, like the occipital lobe at the back of the head handles vision well, but if you don't have eyesight, it gets utilized by different areas or different sense bases instead.
Yeah,
And so you've got that sort of malleable adaptive learning style. But what he was talking about uh, that became interesting was that previously in the past we've had learning or education style that is a just in case learning. So it's like just in case you need to know what the population of 17th century Mongolia is, we're going to run you a course on history through
yeah.
school. You sit there bound to the hope that the teacher knows what they're talking about, and then he said like, but half the time they're just probably making it up, and that's just the best you can do with. And I'm like sitting there thinking, no, I'm pretty sure they. Oh no, yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah, I think most of them are
Actually,
making,
that's what I do.
yeah, making up some of it. Well, it's like you operate. Well, I operate on the knowledge that I have been imparted.
Yeah,
Um, but I also need to like, well, I mean, my course is something that I'm writing myself anyway. But say if you're a maths teacher, for example, you have a curriculum you need to cover. So
yeah,
you need to cover certain topics. They may not be relevant to what today's society needs. Like the jobs that are being produced for the people for 10, 20 years from now don't even have labels yet, but we're teaching from an archaic method of education that doesn't
yeah.
necessarily align to any of the practicality of what will be needed for those roles. And
Well,
so he was saying that it was like a just in case method of learning, but he's saying that like what kids have access to now and is something that he was calling just in time learning. And it's as you become curious of something, like he says, oh, my kids just say, Alexa, what is, and then, what is tectonic shift or whatever, and then it just comes up with an answer and gives you that. And it's because of this, the way that you process information, whatever you're curious about at that time seems to have the most efficient amount of energy production to learning, or like energy requirement for learning. Whereas if you're having
yeah,
to learn stuff you have no interest in, it requires a lot more concentration, focus, all that kind of gear, and it's not an optimized way. And I certainly felt that growing up, like I'd be trying to learn about something that I had no relevance to my life or interest or anything at all, and it's just like none of that went in, and you just talked to me for an hour. Versus
I agree with that.
being interested in something and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is I remember this stuff because I went down the rabbit hole with it, and it was super interesting to me. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, you obviously still need a basis. You still need like particular grounds covered, but it's just the way that the information is accessed is is
mm.
like I
Well,
don't
there's
think he's not pushing for self-directed learning for kids. I don't think it was
mm.
that like implied uh, outcome, but he was just saying like some of the stuff that these like 12 and 13-year-old kids knew. He was just like, how do you know that stuff? And well, I was just watching a TED talk.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
well, yeah, it wasn't that you had a cool teacher and your school was really well rounded. It's just that information is now out there. And I'm thinking like, I don't need to know anything anymore. I just need to know how to know stuff.
yeah. There's two things. So it makes me think of is that point,
Mm,
which is teaching how to access information rather than teaching information.
yeah,
So how to be skilled at Googling,
yeah,
pretty much. Um, But the other thing is like I watch, like I remember how I was taught, which was a very rote learning style,
Yeah.
a very um, 2 times 2 is 4,
Two, two,
three
two,
times
two, four.
4 is yeah. It's just like
Yeah.
you're just learning these things,
Yeah.
but the outcomes of that have been this society,
D-
right?
um.
Because like the
Yeah.
the we've only had a few generations since this modern society was created,
Yeah.
and what produced that was that teaching style,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
so that's good.
yeah, so it's more of a question because I don't have an answer for it,
Ah.
but it's if we're learning in a different way,
Yeah.
like we're kind of upending what what society is doing at the moment. I'll go into a more broad
Mm.
idea first, which is what society is doing at the moment is they're just chipping away at all the moorings of what we used to have.
Yeah.
So they're getting rid of all the heroes because they aren't good enough anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
saw the statue
it,
toppling. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like I don't care if they like founded this. They had slaves, so that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Um, they're getting rid of all of the science, like science is truth, So it's like,
Yeah.
but they brought it onto themselves because science wasn't always truth. Like I think we touched on this earlier, where um, through all these fake studies that were just pumped out into society, um, through newspaper articles saying here's a miracle fruit that's a
Oh,
super fruit. And if you just eat that, it gives you all these benefits and it makes your colon cancer go down by 13%. And then here's this powder that's made from these leaves that if you drink that every day,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
reduces this. And
Yeah. Trust me,
it,
I'm a guy in a lab coat. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and those sort of studies slowly eroded what science was. I mean, you always had these pillars of maths and physics, which are very rigorous and very hard to erode.
Yeah.
Um, it's very hard to argue against 1 + 1 = 2 and those sort of basic assumptions.
Yeah.
But all of the like social sciences, um, the biological
Nutritional. Yeah.
sciences, the nutritional, all of these sort of more gray area sciences
Science told
became
you.
just, well, yeah, it's just that's your opinion, man.
Yeah.
Like I have my opinion about it and you have your opinion about
Yeah.
it and I think I'm right. So it doesn't matter if you did 12 years of study on it. So one of the other things that they've been eroding is education. So because these things can't be trusted and because we have access to so much information online, I saw this years ago, people saying, "Oh, what's the point of going to university? What's the point of studying
Mm.
when I can just watch a YouTube video?" It's like, well, do you want your appendix taken out by someone who watched a YouTube video? Like, it's like, are you gonna just, oh yeah, let me just, hang on, let me just rewind that. What did he do? Okay, yeah, hang on.
Yeah.
And it's like, so back to the education and learning styles.
Yeah.
Like that rote learning style and that strict memory based that strict memory based style of learning.
Yeah.
I wonder if it has unintended positive consequences for the individual that has to go through that.
Yeah, look, I well, okay. I know you're like posing a question on that, and I don't have a
Mm,
full answer to that either. I do know that we have memories, like the way our memory works is on like that crystalline and fluid kind of intelligence where we have like solid known facts, and then from that basis of known information, we then make the prediction stuff, right? Like I think that's what I talked a little bit about last week, is that the predictive brain,
yeah,
how
yeah,
we take a map of our past experiences, we use that to make predictions about the future or about causality, and then
yeah.
we adjust when unpredicted things occur around it. And so you do need like the better your basis of crystalline knowledge or your knowledge base in itself, the bigger it is, the better you will function and operate as a predictive brain, and that's
Yeah.
necessary. But in order to put useful information in there, like the best model that you can have for your survival, you want to have information that's relevant to what we're experiencing today, or at least,
Well, see, that's where I bring up, that's why I brought it up, because there seems to be this separation between, oh, today's different and before was different. Whereas what I'm postulating is that the whole thing's the same. Like it's still the same people and experiences. Like there's nothing fundamentally different about human experience now than it was 200 years ago. Like
um,
th
as far as the
there's no,
biology goes, no, we're definitely
yeah,
got still the same meat machine running around, like doing stuff.
yeah,
Socially, very different. Um, like we still
yeah,
have
we,
the, base drives and needs and so on, but our methods for interacting are different. Um, but I think it's more about, in order to have the greatest efficiency from your base level of knowledge, you want to be able to. It's just there's such a massive information out there, and what you want is you want the best operation based on that massive information, that you can, because you just can't know everything.
yeah, yeah,
But you do need a certain number of skills to help navigate what we're experiencing with our radically changing culture. And so, in order to get that, I mean, like one of the things he was suggesting is that, with this neuroplasticity, you're basically continuously able to learn new tricks. There's none of this old no can't teach an old dog new tricks thing.
mm,
It's just that it's you automate so much of your behavior that in order to create change, you have to go back, undo some of that automation, and reshape it to new areas. He said very interestingly, people with like early on onset Alzheimer's, but who had a very busy, active lifestyle, never showed the symptoms of it, because even though areas of their brain were liquefying, or degenerating, they were getting new synaptic pathways happening because they needed the skill sets, and so they were just
yeah,
like growing and readapting to it.
yeah,
But anyway, the education system that, is it's not so much the rote learning and so on. It's more the content of what's available, and the content of what's there is not necessarily the best way of transmitting that information to people without the availability of curiosity. Like if I was to say teach about history, I would just have a bunch of examples of historical stories and let people work them out themselves through that, because then the
yeah,
curiosity will take you in, and then you get the information, and
yeah.
then
But I think
you as a
what
teacher would
I'm
fill
getting
in the
at,
gaps or something.
yeah, but what I'm sort of getting at is what we're doing is we're kind of running a real-time experiment, science experiment. We're going, hey, let's just change all education because we
um
think the old way isn't suited to the modern needs. And it's kind of like what we're seeing at our school.
Mm.
They've just like, hey, let's just join four classes together,
Oh,
and we'll have the teachers have their own little areas, but there'll be no walls, so all the kids can cross-pollinate. And
okay.
it's neither good nor bad, but
Yeah.
what it is different.
Yeah.
And it's different. Is it different for the sake of difference,
Right. Right.
or is it different because it's necessary that we need to change something because something is fundamentally getting flawed or mishandled? And that's sort of what I'm getting at is that
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. Not create change for the sake of change.
yeah, and there
Yeah.
seems to be this huge energy towards that. It's like someone's like,
Yeah.
I've got an idea, let's put it in, let's
Yeah.
put it in. I've got
Do
like,
it.
let's just rip out this old thing and stick it in because this is a modern society and everyone
Yeah.
is new and different and they don't understand what we were doing back then. They're just primitive idiots and we're gonna solve all the problems, and but you've not run the experiment. You're all you're doing is putting in motion a 20-year experiment, and then in 20 years you see what those students turned out and then it's too late then because it's like like 5 years into this experiment, some other one's going to come in and go, no, 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 not that, not that. Let's get
Yeah.
these out and let's put these ones in.
Look, that's a
And
legitimate fear, but
yeah,
like
it's like actually,
I would imagine, well, no, not would imagine. I would hope that the creation of new models like the Montessori style education is not something that's just based on arbitrary excitement, like a Coke bender, and then just yeah, man,
I,
and then
I,
we'll just, it's
I
more
don't
that
see
like,
any proof to any other
uh,
way.
sorry, you
Like, I don't
got a
see
bit of a lag
any
spike there, dude. Sorry.
rigorous scientific testing on these ideas.
Ah, yeah,
Hello?
yep.
Is that better? Maybe I was getting too excited.
No, it's just a little bit laggy. But no, I heard what I think I heard what you said. You said there's no evidence of rigorous scientific proof that these models are actually better.
Well, and they're not giving that proof before they put them in, is what my point is.
So you mean by having done small scale testing rather than
Yeah,
large
and no,
scale
there's no
implementation?
full, yeah, and there's no like they seem to be run by personality rather than proof.
Mm,
Hence why you have the Montessori school, because it's like some dude named Montessori, and you have like the Steiner school, and
yeah,
you have all these modes of learning based on people.
yeah,
And th as much as that is interesting,
mm,
and you can then go, well, what did those people turn out like? And let's see what areas of that we can implement into this system for the mainstream.
mm,
Fundamentally changing education, especially education. The reason why it struck me so much was just education is what creates the next generation. So without like education is what indoctrinates us all
yeah,
um, into the same society. So if you're changing the education system, you're fundamentally changing the society for the next lot of people because you don't have those shared experiences and you don't have those shared pathways that are carved into your brain by the method that those learnings are done by. So
yeah.
it's
Okay,
it
so the fear is more that it's just a random roll of the dice rather than a an actual improved model.
it might be a guesstimate.
Mm,
Like it might be I ran a few mental like thoughts about it, and I've done some cognitive behavioral studies, and I asked people, would you rather repeat the times tables 20 times, or do you want to have fun color cartoon characters tell you the times table.
Yeah.
But it's like this system is evolved. It's like the difference between evolution of a system versus the man-made um like conscious changing of a system.
Um, yeah, yes and no. Like it has evolved, but it's also been pushed by monetary gain rather than educational benefit. Um, the notion of standardization of testing and like the obtaining of the grades based on that standardization of testing is not so much driven by creating educational excellence, it's more driven by getting the money in. It's like we want people to perform the best at this particular setup that we've created so that we can state that our school is able to best produce students that can perform these tests well, and then that is the measure of heightened education, and most of that is not necessarily a production of actually well-rounded educated people. A lot of that has to do with like good advertising, good marketing, good personalities as well. Like, you have your top level. We run, what is it, like the Cambridge standard, blah 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 education systems. It does a pretty okay job, but there is a lot of it that's also not necessarily relevant and it doesn't fit people. But because it carries with it the ideals of excellence with it, it then gets given a like an inflated standard of education, or an inflated standard of necessity. But really, what it's producing is
Yeah,
is
I
a is a
agree that
money
you can't,
making.
but who are the people that are coming out of it is my question. It's like the old Christian thing, like you judge a tree not by the tree, but by its fruit.
Yeah,
It's it's like that's how you tell whether a system is working. It's like you don't look at the system and go, do I think it's good? You look at a system and go, what's it producing? And are those products viable? Are they good? Like, are they making what you want?
yeah. I mean,
And
I think part of the problem too that we're facing with education systems is that it tries to fit all into one, whereas humanity doesn't have that. It's like what I noticed, especially in Australia, was that there was an uprising of schools that were available for students who just don't fit the mold, and that was necessary because in the run-of-the-mill style education, they just did not function. But outside of that, in a different style of education, it clicked better with them, and so their
yeah,
opportunities for develop or in betterment of themselves increased. So it's quite possible that we don't need necessarily to remove the old. We need to have what is it, like complementary education streams that can work with that rather than replacement. Because, like I said, there is a necessity for that crystalline base of knowledge. I didn't enjoy learning maths, but I'm glad I've got the capacity to do it.
yeah, and that's all I was saying is that
Mm.
I just see it happening everywhere at the
Oh, for
moment.
sure. The,
Is this like erosion, like a gleeful erosion
yeah,
of the moorings of society,
yeah,
and it's like it's like everyone thought it was real, and now they're actually looking, they're seeing it's just a system,
mm,
and they're seeing that it's flawed,
yeah, right,
and instead of going, well, what's it actually doing
yeah,
for us
yeah,
to see whether we should get rid of it, they're going, it's got a flaw in it, let's get rid of it.
yeah,
And they're just uprooting the whole thing and chucking it out without
yeah,
thinking, now there's a giant hole.
yeah.
Like
Without actually
there's,
learning from what it's produced. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and so you're ending up with these like massive collapses of of the society without any idea, anything that's replaced it. And a lot of it's this like forcing of equality of outcome, like this like hope that somehow everyone can somehow have the same outcome, which is
Yeah.
it's just like how can that be possible?
Yeah.
Like it's like it doesn't that doesn't exist.
No.
Like
I think it's
for one,
emotion-based logic. It's
yeah,
what
it's
it's
like you
sounding
want to
like.
take everyone with you. Like it's like, oh yeah, I really, it's like take this podcast, right? You
Mm.
and me are doing this podcast
Fixing the world. Yeah.
where, well, yeah, but but what I mean is like we're initiating it,
Mm.
and so we will get an whatever outcome this effort put that we're putting in happens.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like you can't expect someone that didn't do that to also get the same outcome.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like it just
Yeah.
there's no way of doing that.
Yeah. There's no
And that's what
causality.
they're trying to do at the moment. Is like, oh, not enough people are getting A's. Okay, lower the difficulty. So
Yeah.
what? That's not
Yeah.
how you. That's
Yeah.
no, like teach better. Like make it the A is like up here. Like
Yeah. Make it count.
yeah, make that A mean that it's an A.
Yeah.
Make that trophy mean that you did something good,
Yeah.
not that you just participated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
So it
yeah. I
I
think
just
that is possibly the difficulty that people are having. It's that they see diversity as being equating to good and bad. So it's like men and women are equal but different. It's like we don't have the same physical capacities as each other,
hmm
but we should be treated with the same respect and equality in that regards. But we should not hold the same expectations of what a woman can do compared to what a man can do, say in physical abilities, because they're
yeah,
just
I
not the
mean,
same.
well, again, like it's the difference between equality of opportunity.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity for you to do whatever you want when you start as a kid within your physical and mental ability.
Yeah, and that's
Like
the key
that should
point.
be available to, that's what should be opened up and available to everyone.
Yeah.
That's where they should be focusing the broadening of that. Like if you put in the effort and you as a human being focus on a goal, you should be allowed to try and achieve it. Like that is where I think you get the most benefit because you get these people like your Elon Musks and like your
Mm.
Bill Gates and all these people that have a unique way of behaving
Mm.
that brings a huge benefit to the rest of society. And even if it doesn't bring a benefit to society, as long as it's what they want to do, that's how it should happen. Whereas what we're sort of doing at the moment is like, oh no, you should be held like we're trying to run a race and everyone wants to finish at the same time.
Mm.
Like so we're gonna hold back the fast ones and we're gonna put the slow ones in a car and we're all gonna just wait for each other and go across the finish line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, I guess that
like
the reason for that is because of the difference in rewards. It's just like if you get the straight A's, you get the top jobs, you end up making the money that is just so far beyond what your guy that's
yeah,
trudging his way through life can get. And it's like nobody
yeah, and
wants
it's
to be punished for working a 12-hour day, um, but only making a tenth of the pay that the other person working an 8-hour day is making. That kind of thing.
yeah, and I mean there's no cure for it. I mean I don't know. Did you ever watch Metropolis?
Oh
The
yeah, but
the
quite
old movie.
it's like 15, 20 years ago or something. Yeah.
So that's the central theme of it is that there's a guy who's disenfranchised and at the bottom of society
Mm,
who hates the people in the pleasure palace who are up on the top of the building having fun,
mm,
eating cucumber sandwiches and drinking tea, and he's trying to overthrow them. So he starts a revolution. He starts getting everyone to fight them.
mm.
But through his fame and through his ability, he gets to the top.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I'm enjoying it here.
Yeah.
So then he doesn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas the guy at the top gets thrown down to the bottom,
Yeah.
and now he's trying to get up. He's trying to tear down and it's
Yeah.
it's it's this
Yeah.
it's a very
Well,
specific thing where it's like there's
it was
there's
a
very little
yeah.
we can do about that.
Yeah. No, 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 not without basically magic. There was this
What
interesting
what because I mean
sci-fi
think
book that I was reading that had like you basically humanity ended up with these devices that were basically like a 3D printer slash internet that your basic needs were always met. You could just use
mm,
it to help transport you to anywhere in the galaxy. You could set up shop wherever you wanted, build me a house. It just starts eating raw material matter, or it just produces energy out of the ether or whatever it was doing. And so you were no longer limited. And so then people's that's what allowed for that change in people's greed and desire for the top was that they could have whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. And so the simplicity of being able to enjoy a beach or whatever suddenly became more important to people rather than having this imbalance of a power structure where you're struggling at some point.
yeah, but
And
there's always going to be the asshole that wants what you have. Like the
yeah, yeah, you'll end up with conflict at some point. I think like the only way
yeah,
you can really overcome that is through, say, like an emotional link rather
yeah,
than a just a pure two brains in separate skulls trying to talk it out. If you could
yeah. Well,
actually
I mean,
then perceive the other person's suffering, or like they could understand yours, you would end up with a much better like understanding of compromise.
yeah. This at some fundamental level, it's like it has to be an internal change
Yeah.
rather than trying to. I mean, that's why capitalism was such an effective system because it it more closely matched what humans were, so it was more effective.
Right, 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 right. It not necessarily a good thing, but it closely
No,
matched what what our
yeah,
drives were. Right. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
It allowed that, like that sort of
Um.
market-based solution,
On
which was
on that.
let people's desires drive it.
Yeah. On that. Talk about that model. Do you think this is a thought that I was having the other day that the system of democracy allows for its own destruction to create self-correction? Like what I was thinking is this: you're getting this greater and greater divide between the affluent and the rest of society, the effluence, um, and but because for the allowance of freedoms of speech, and the pursuit of whatever happiness they're choosing, people are then they're not so oppressed that they're allowed to basically destroyed that system itself in order to create something more egalitarian. Whereas things like say a heavily dictated communist approach basically just forces the oppression and doesn't allow for growth and change.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. Like the interesting thing about it is things like the old revolutions. Like
Mm,
you have the Communist Revolution, the French Revolution, even the American Revolution, like the where they went to war with England
Mm.
and then with themselves. Um, there was a there was a distinct advantage in numbers.
Yeah, right.
Well, I should say it's distinct advantage to numbers. If you had more people, you could generally, through force, decide what you wanted to do.
Right.
If if the ruling class got too out of whack,
Yeah.
technology has created a an imbalance in that, in the sense that it is very hard to overthrow a government now. So it's very hard to like the numbers you need to overthrow a government is more now than it
Mm.
was before. Like before, you could have just a bunch of dudes with muskets, and then there was a bunch of dudes with muskets on the other side defending it,
Right.
and whoever shot their muskets the most
Yeah.
kind of won. Um, Now you have this asymmetric, like that was the whole idea around the Second Amendment, was that people should have access to weapons in case the government became tyrannical, and then you could overthrow it. Like that was the whole sort of
Right.
right to bear arms. Um, but now it's like you've got pea shooters against tanks. You know,
Mm.
it's almost become irrelevant. If the military is backing the government, it's very hard for a society to overthrow its government now.
Yeah. Mm.
So governments can afford to lean more authoritarian now than they normally would be in the past.
Well, so do you think that like the demonstrations and riots and stuff in America has actually been ineffectual?
Oh, totally.
It's just
It's like a baby tantrum.
a bunch of baby
It's like,
tantrums. A few people got
yeah,
shot.
I mean, if the government instructed the military to put those riots down, those riots would be put down.
Yeah.
It's only if the military um, forms a coup. That's the only way.
Yeah, right.
Like in Thailand and stuff. You get
Yeah.
the military coups every like 3 years. They're like, no, no, that's enough. You crazy dude, get out. Um, that's the only way you can really overthrow a government now
Yeah, right.
because of all the advanced weaponry. Like you've got all these guys in America armed to the teeth with like miniguns and bazookas and grenades and all this stuff.
Mm.
Doesn't mean squat. Like if you had a bunch of states revolt and the government was like, well, we're going to put you down now, and then they just go over it with stealth bombers, there's nothing you can do. Like, there's just
Yeah.
zero you can do.
Yeah, that's
It's like, you can run sort of terrorist campaigns.
yeah, it'd have to be guerrilla tactic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do.
Yeah.
That's the only proven effective strategy to that,
Yeah,
which
hide
is
amongst the
what
people. Yeah.
yeah, which is what Vietnamese showed, Afghani showed.
Yeah.
If you're having overwhelming um, sort of
Yeah.
broad attacks happening on you, you're relying on the government that's attacking you. It's basically taking advantage. What they've done is taken advantage of the government that's attacking's morality. Because the government that's attacking
Yeah.
is
Okay.
we're the good guys.
Yeah.
We're not going to attack the civilians. We're
Yeah.
just attacking the bad guys. So if you can't identify the bad guys,
Yeah.
bad luck. You can't
You end
do
up
anything.
bombing the village. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then
And then you
everyone
have
hates you.
collateral damage, which weakens your base,
Yeah.
which then you get voted out.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of a power grab, like say Trump wins,
Trump
um,
wins. Oh, I thought you
yep.
said say Trump wins. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah.
uh, so Trump wins, right,
Mm,
in November. 4 more years go by. He decides, I've had enough of this. I'm going to take another 4 years, right? Because you're only allowed 2 terms,
yeah.
so that'll be his second.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to have a third, but
Yeah.
he wants a third. His side of government sides with him.
Mm.
The other side of government doesn't have the numbers to vote them out,
They go and change
right?
legislation.
So yeah, his side of government votes in, oh, there's emergency special rules, or we can have 4 more years. Uh,
Trumpocracy.
yeah. So say you have that imaginary scenario,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Basically, what's happening in places where a dictator or something is taking over, they just change
yeah,
the rules to fit their needs.
yeah,
Yeah.
like Putin did, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you can only have 2 terms in Russia,
Yeah.
but then I'm going to become the prime minister, and they get 2 terms, and then I'm going to go back to being the president. But while I'm prime minister, we're going to write all the rules that prime ministers are the top. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
playing with the rules, right? But
Yeah.
as long as the military's backing him,
Yeah.
that's it. That's all he needs,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So, and it'll be the same with America. If the Republicans decide it, and then they write it into law,
Mm.
and then the military signs off on that law, like they agree,
Yeah. Then you've got the
there's
might to
nothing
back it. Yeah.
there's nothing you can do because ultimately law is enforced
Yeah.
by violence. Like the ultimate like no, laws mean nothing unless they can be backed up by violence.
Yeah.
So like somewhere down the line, like where it's like I didn't pay it's the law that I have to pay for my parking fine. Well, I'm not going to pay it. Well, then you're going to go to jail eventually. It's like at the end of all of it,
Yeah.
there is this threat of violence or
Yeah.
incarceration.
Yeah. Right.
So so you like it's been a huge balance change,
Mm.
and for countries like Australia where we don't even have any weapons really.
Yeah.
I
But
mean we're
yeah.
way less close to that,
Yeah.
but it's the same idea. It's like the military's become so advanced
Mm.
that basically whoever controls that, there's no one else can say anything.
Yeah, but it still seems like there's a massive degradation of society that's happening in America, which in itself will weaken the power structure of the government because people are just no longer listening.
Yeah, but what is that doing?
Well, it's eroding the actual governance
It's
itself.
eroding the society.
Yeah, it's eroding the
Yeah,
society.
yeah, but it's not eroding the government.
No, I guess they'll
Because,
just adapt to whatever the new society needs.
well, I mean, the governments are formed through votes.
Yeah,
So if you just drop out of the system,
yeah,
you're just going to be ruled by people that don't have to listen to you because you're not voting.
yeah,
So you like no vote is not a vote.
yeah, right.
So
Yeah, unless you
it's
can back up your position with violence, right?
yeah, unless you can form something with violence, like what Chaz and or whatever it was tried to do.
Yeah,
Like
jeez.
like they tried to form their little society
Mm.
and tried to back it up with violence, but it didn't work because they
No,
didn't have
yeah,
enough
yeah.
of it.
It looked like a sleepover that went on a bit too long.
They got a few people shot.
Got a few people, like any
Yeah,
sleepover.
yeah.
Yeah,
Eventually,
that's how you know
someone
it was a
gets
good
shot.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
it's hard like that, like
Mm,
in terms of society and change, and um, it's like you have to eventually take part.
yeah.
Like if you don't take part, no matter how small your input is into
Mm,
that society, if you take that away, it just means whatever's going on
yeah.
goes
Goes
on without you.
unchallenged. Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't change because you're like, nah, man, I don't want to do it anymore.
yeah,
So they don't care because they're all just power hungry, like authoritarian, crazy people.
Yeah, right.
Like that's why they're in that system. That's why they're in that position.
Yeah,
Because
well,
they're
I'm kind
like,
of waiting to see what the outcome of all this is because it does seem like that the energy behind whatever the riots were is starting to run out. But you're like just the people that I'm hearing, I guess online are all just talking about how it's all fallen to pieces. But that just could be because I'm in a like one of those biased news feeds that's just
yeah,
telling me the
it's
same message over and over.
and it's also like there are riots, there are people getting killed,
Mm,
there are minority
mm,
factions getting taken advantage of,
yeah.
and but the question is, what's the most effective way to elicit change?
Mm,
And there's only a certain amount of mechanisms that you can use.
yeah.
Like ultimately, you have as a citizen your vote,
Yep.
you have your protest,
Yep.
and you have just general spreading of your ideas like this.
Mm,
So we try and influence people.
yep.
So it's like if you then take away some of those,
Mm,
like which is voting is like the first one. Now, I'm not going to vote. I don't think everyone sucks. It's like, well,
yeah. You're limited to another.
it's a
Yeah.
gradual thing. If you vote for the person that you want, and then that person wins,
Mm,
the next people that come up will be leaning more towards the way your view is.
yeah.
Because it's a spectrum, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you've got, yeah, I think someone was talking, it was Brett Weinstein, him and his wife, they were talking about
Right.
you got left and right, and then you got authoritarian and libertarian,
All right.
right? So, and then there's these four quadrants,
Yeah.
and it's where is everyone
Right.
on that graph? And so, if you're a left-wing libertarian person,
Mm,
um, which currently there's very few, it's mostly left-wing authoritarians and
mm,
right-wing authoritarians.
yeah. Right.
But say you want to reduce the overall authoritarian aspect in society,
Yeah.
right? So you're not concerned with left and right anymore. So you're trying to pick people that don't have authoritarian
Yeah.
viewpoint.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so then the next people that if you get that authoritarian level lower,
Yeah.
you're not going to get these outliers. Like
Yeah. Right.
you, you don't get like Hitler just rock up, who's a right wing like authoritarian
Authoritarian.
figure,
Mm,
when everyone's in the bottom left corner because they're too far away from where the votes are.
yeah. Right.
They can't get that power transfer that easily.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the society has to move that way.
Oh, so you're saying they're primed for an authoritarian leader now?
Oh yeah, 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 exactly.
Well, they got some good
So
candidates lined up. So yeah, that'll be
yeah,
good.
it's
On that, we are at like an hour and a half. So
oh really?
yeah,
Jeez,
should probably wrap it up.
time flies.
Yep, save
Yeah,
some for
cool.
next week.
Okay, let's do my
You want to do some
D and
thumbnails?
D.
Oh, D&D.
No, I want to
All
know
right.
I want to know what you thought.
Um,
I like ending the show like this because
yeah.
it's kind of like
All
a
right. So last week's game, we finished off smashing that demon. Um,
yeah,
pretty epic boss battle actually. Um,
yeah,
but it was yeah, like I'm saying, like the group is coordinating its play so well. We're working with each other. Everyone's sacrificing their own gain to make sure that the whole party or the party as a whole is still together. It's like I'll use a spell slot to heal this person. I won't go in it for the heroic attack or anything.
yeah.
We're all dishing out our own health potions to save each other and so on. So that's working good. But my God, it's getting tough. It's getting real tough. We're earning
It's
our
good.
XP now.
Yeah,
I was pretty happy that we managed to destroy that summoning circle thing.
Yeah,
Um,
you nearly didn't. So
yeah, that was a pretty timely shatter. Um,
yeah, and you got to see the Alchemist a bit more,
yeah,
which was cool.
he's frightening. Um,
He wasn't gonna come out unless the dude started losing.
all right, yeah,
He
but
was like a bit of backup.
yeah, Bennett Bennett got him, got at him pretty well.
The fireball
He just
down the
went for it.
corridor.
It's like I'm saving this. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That
then
was
did the
cool.
dash, the double dash, and then burnt some
Yeah, yeah.
sorcery points.
That
It's
was
like,
awesome.
yeah, he's a killer.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It
Yeah,
was worked pretty well.
yeah. So that was pretty good. It was nice. It was definitely nice play testing the different what is it, martial type. Um,
Oh, the Battle Masters.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's so much more
yeah.
interesting than just hoping to get a 19 or a 20 for a crit. Because
Yeah, well, I saw that because I remember you complaining about it before, like sort of fighters are boring. And
yeah,
so I was like looking into it and I was like, oh, actually, it's just like there's all different types and maybe you didn't choose the one that you liked playing.
yeah. No, I literally
Yeah,
just picked the only one available on D&D Beyond for the
yeah.
account that I've got.
And I was thinking about disarm, like in terms of like
Yeah, that was weird
it's,
mechanics.
yeah, I think I think disarm would be too powerful if they couldn't pick up their weapon
Yeah,
because you could literally just keep doing it.
yeah,
So I think that's why you have to have that ability to have a free action.
yeah.
And I think disarm is more used for objects. Like I think it'll be, I think it, like thinking about it in my mind, it'll be really useful if someone has something and you try and knock it out of their hand.
Oh, yeah, right. So if they're like wearing the gauntlet of power or whatever, and you just
Yeah, yeah, like
try and
Thanos or something, or like,
yeah, right.
or they're like, this is the key, you're not gonna get it, and you like disarm it out of their hand, and then someone dive, they dive for it. So it's,
Yeah, yeah,
y-
because otherwise, like, yeah, burning an action point to or an action to try and kick the weapon away. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, that does kind of help a bit. Um, but
But again,
otherwise,
I kind of had to house rule it to do that.
yeah, well, there is nothing
So it's,
around it, and that's what I was surprised. It's like,
yeah,
what's the point of a disarm in a weapon fight then, as a skill, if
yeah,
they just
because
pick the thing
I think,
straight back up again? Because otherwise, really, all you're doing is
yeah,
adding damage dice.
yeah, exactly. And technically, it makes it hard because it's like disarming someone is such a powerful thing in D&D.
Yeah,
It's like if I had a character that could just disarm you,
yeah. Every time they
and
made a hit
then
with a strength check, you just like,
yeah,
oh,
and
no
then
weapon. Yeah,
well, I can easily just make a battle master NPC
yeah,
and be like, oh, you're disarmed, and I pick up your weapon and put it away. You're disarmed, I pick up your weapon. It's like
yeah. Just has a bag of holding, just
it's like,
dumps
oh,
all your weapons in.
I try and punch him.
Yeah, bit of the
It
old
kind of
pugilism. Yeah,
it kind of shows like how D&D is not real life. Like it's not,
yeah.
you try and make it a sort of a vague copy, but it's not real life in that
Yeah,
sense. So
yeah, that's true. Otherwise, like the skill contested because it's like a contested strength check, but
yeah,
the reality is if you had like an 8 strength and you're fighting something with a 23 strength, you're never disarming that thing. There should be
yeah,
like a
exactly.
there should still be a base threshold. But if you're an 8 and you roll a natural 20 and they're a 23 and they roll a natural 1, the numbers are there, or a 2 or whatever, the
Yeah,
numbers are there to
yeah, yeah,
do it, but it's just not a realistic interpretation of what would actually take place. So you may just
yeah,
like
exactly.
need, and that's where you get complicated. It's like the rules would need to be too complicated in order to,
Yeah, exactly. And
uh,
and it's the same as like, oh, I want to disarm a fire giant or like
yeah,
it's like, I mean, you could roll and do it,
yeah,
but like realistically, it's very, and so that's why it's like D&D simulates realism, but it's not real.
yeah,
So it's like, and I think that's why you need those little sort of, like I just make a, on the
Yeah.
fly. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
a bit
can
of
do
home
it.
brewing. Yeah, I think
Yeah, it's
we're
like
not particularly rules lawyery where you can't do that. I don't think there's any players that will just
no,
no, the
I
rules
try
don't
not to.
say that. Yeah,
Yeah, and if there's any confusion, I try and always side with the player, like
yeah,
because
right.
I
Yeah,
don't
why
think
not?
I
Just
don't think
add.
it helps
No.
to try and be like, aha, you can't do
Yeah,
that.
I
Now you
killed your
failed.
player.
Yeah,
Haha.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's I think that side of it is I think we're doing okay with that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
But I mean,
mean, we're playing week to week. There's been like very little abandonment of the gaming, so
yeah,
it's
everyone's
clearly
pretty
working.
eager, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
helps. Mm,
yeah, it is good.
yeah.
Oh well. Anyway, anything
Yes.
else?
No, not this week.
Uh,
I got up super early to go to work because I was worried about like they were doing blockades between the states,
oh,
but
jeez.
I live in the inner state that's surrounded by another state and I have to travel out of one to go into the next. And it's only like a 20-minute
Okay.
drive, but I was
Yeah,
like there's 4 million people that cross this state line every day because of the way the city's structured. And if
yeah,
they have to have a checkpoint at every road coming in and out with this many cars, I'm going to be on the road for the whole day. So I'm like, I'll just get
yeah.
up super early, go in. But it just turns out it wasn't there. They ended up coming up with the rule saying, no, that's ridiculous. We're talking about like large distance travel,
Uh,
not just
oh, well, that's
this sort of
good.
stuff.
At least they're pretty reasonable.
Yeah, they're actually not doing too bad a job.
Mm.
They're just trying to limit the movement because they're saying like at the moment there's a growth rate that's at a certain percentage at like one or whatever, one point something. But if it gets to like 2.2, then we run out of hospital beds to treat people. So
Yeah,
we need to limit the spread because otherwise we
yeah,
start
that's pretty
having to make
scary.
choices of who dies.
Well, it's where they had those two lines in the beginning. Remember, they were like,
Yeah,
"Here's the hospital capacity. We want it under there. We don't want it
yeah,
like."
yeah. So
Yeah,
they're bringing it up, but it seems like they're letting the people here have a little bit more freedom to choose responsibly for themselves, which is, I think, good because it at least saves the economy as well, so they're not shutting down all the businesses.
yeah. Well, I know in Queensland they had a real problem because on the border, you've got all the that huge northern New South Wales area,
Oh yeah,
where we used to live, like in
yep,
Lismore and Ballina and
yeah,
Nimbin and Byron and all that sort of area.
yeah,
Um, they're mostly focused on driving up to Queensland every day.
yeah,
It's
right,
only an hour and a half drive
yeah, right,
to get to like the Gold Coast and stuff like that.
yeah.
And so, but there's only one road, and they were just blocking it,
Oh
and
jeez,
you could only go one person at a time.
oh jeez.
And so you were
There's
just having these enormous snaking traffic jams.
yeah,
And Queensland was like, well, we're happy to change the border, so we take that part. And New South Wales like, no.
hilarious. Good one, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll just take the Gold
teamwork.
Coast much easier.
Yeah, yeah, T teamwork.
Jeez, that's yeah.
But yeah,
But yeah, so long story short, I got up at like 4:30, 5:30, whatever, somewhere around then this
yeah.
morning, trying to get ready, so
No,
I'm
fair enough.
burnt out.
All right, cool, dude. It was a
Yep,
good chat.
yep. So same again next week.
Yeah, yeah.
See
Tune
y'all.
in, like, comment, subscribe.
Oh yeah,
Be
yeah, that's right.
hit the bell.
Yeah. All right. See y'all.